Hi everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub Conference, What's Next for Safeguarding Against SEAH, the importance of CSO engagement in shaping sustainable solutions. My name is Fabienne Simenel, and I am your chair for today. I'm accompanied by a great team that is dedicated to running a smooth conference. They are Marie Dubost, our tech host, and we have our interpreters who are Wala El-Hanawi, Rehab El-Sheikh, Clara Misonawe, and Dionella Benice Ulloa. And we have the RSH team, of course, who will be very actively participating in the chat, answering any questions you may have in the Q&A. This conference is available in English, Arabic, and French. Well, whether you are a new joiner for day 2 or whether you also attended day 1, we are very grateful that you are here. It is our hope that you will find the conference enriching and thought-provoking, but most importantly, we hope that it inspires continued action. Please also be advised that this webinar contains content on a PSEH that some may find distressing. So please ensure to seek support and look after yourself across these discussions. We have been discussing the challenges that CSOs face in implementing effective PSEH practices, and we have been exploring ways forward to overcome these barriers. That was yesterday. Today, we will focus on equitable partnerships with civil society organizations, as well as the importance of leadership and culture change to maintain momentum on PSEH. As we continue our discussions on these important topics, we have invited a number of distinguished speakers who represent CSOs, thought leaders, PSEH experts, and they will share their reflections and experiences on these different topics. Many of them were former RSH national representatives across our global hubs. We wish to thank all of you again for joining us as we embark on the second and final day of exploration on what's next for PSEH. With that in mind, I would like to welcome 3 speakers who will open day 2 of the conference for us. First, we have Dr. Eleanor Nwadinobi, who joined Social Development Direct in 2012 as a gender advisor. She is currently senior advisor in the Social Development Direct team that is supporting delivery of the Nigeria Resource and Support Hub. Eleanor is a medical doctor and an international health, women, peace and security, gender and human rights expert. She holds a European Union Masters in Human Rights and Democratization from Venice, Italy, and Eleanor will offer reflections on collaboration and the importance of shared purpose if we are to effectively address SEAH. Next, we will hear from Gabrielle Dube. She is an International Development Officer representing Global Affairs Canada. Gabrielle has worked in gender-based violence policy and programming at Canada's Department for Women and Gender Equality, participating in the development of Canada's action plan to end gender-based violence. Gabrielle holds a master's degree in globalization and international development with a specialization in women's studies from the University of Ottawa. And lastly, but certainly not least, we will hear from Graham Thursby. He is safeguarding and HR advisor from BOND. BOND is a member-led organization that seeks to connect, strengthen, and champion a network of diverse civil society organizations to help eradicate global poverty, inequality, and injustice. Graham will highlight the importance of leadership and culture and emphasize the work BOND are doing to engage more localized approaches to accountability work. Before we start, a kind reminder to all the speakers of today. As we are working with interpreters, please be so kind to use a microphone and speak calmly so that they can translate your message to Arabic or to French. Also, please keep an eye on the Q&A box because there will be questions for you. So now over to our speakers. Eleanor, let's start with you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so very much. Esteemed co-presenters, participants, organizers and interpreters, it is an absolute delight to give this keynote today. The Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub, RSH Nigeria, has had Social Development Direct as its technical and delivery lead from September 2020 to date in 2 separate phases. Now, the Nigeria Hub is part of the Africa Regional Hub, which rolled out hub activities first in Ethiopia, followed by Nigeria and South Sudan. And, I say safeguarding as a practice is fairly new compared to other better known concepts like protection and gender-based violence. So I tend to say we are building the aircraft as it takes off. I would like to share with you today our ethos and values because we do hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards in everything that we do. And integrity, transparency, and trust are fundamental to our work. So our values and ethos are enshrined in our theory of change, which you will find on our website. We strive to do no harm. In other words, zero tolerance for any harm in the course of our delivery. We recognize intersectionality and we're gender sensitive. We are committed to education, reflection, and action to address racism and to decolonize our development approaches. We value indigenous and local expertise. We value contributions from a diverse range of actors. We respect non-dominant narratives, and we respect survivor voices. Of course, we believe in being responsible and accountable. We value mutual listening and learning. We value innovation and change. The Nigeria Hub is designed to support less resourced CSOs, to increase their capacity and motivation to effectively mainstream safeguarding within their organizational systems, their structures, and their processes, as well as creating a shift from the tick box compliance to way of life practice and culture of their organization. So we have, in addition to face-to-face trainings, webinars like we have today, e-learning, peer-to-peer learning, and our mentorship program, which is our flagship program, has the involvement of board, management, staff of all cadre, and volunteers. But you will be hearing more about that from Oge Chukwudozie, one of our pioneer safeguarding experts from Nigeria, later on today. So looking at enhancing knowledge and practice of safeguarding in a high quality, contextualized, accessible, we have practical tools and materials to build the capacity of our RSH end users. It's also important for us to shift from the responsibility sitting solely with one focal person to ensuring that all staff are champions and ambassadors of the safeguarding message. This way, we avoid the risk of having a gap on account of, for example, staff attrition. So creating that system of change using evidence-based strategies and interventions, practical ways of engaging multiple stakeholders in a collaborative and cohesive way. We contextualize current issues related to safeguarding, especially looking at the context and nuances of the Nigerian contextual milieu. Our capacity strengthening goes along for effective advocacy by our partners, maintaining a community of practice of safeguarding practitioners so that we create coalitions of safeguarding champions, safeguarding advocates, ambassadors, if you want. And of course, important that we secure funding that as much as possible is dedicated to safeguarding. So if you recall that I said that we had, first of all, in Africa, the Ethiopian hub, the phased approach was such that as our hubs came on stream, we were able to have evidence gathering and learning from the preceding national hubs and able to adjust and adapt our approach that informed our delivery to support some subsequent implementation. Our data is our gold, and we gather evidence on activities, and we're constantly conducting online hub analytics, and the hub directly uses and adapts existing tools designed for specific activities to monitor and report on progress. Now, through our very robust communication strategy, we've got the Nigerian Hub news, resources, and events promoted and shared through our newsletters, our global social media channels. However, remember that we do have rural and remote areas that lack the infrastructure for internet. So we also use traditional media like radio so that we're able to reach larger audiences and reach the unreached. Now, while RSH is ab initio designed for less resourced CSOs, we have been intentional in reaching out to other constituencies. And we have done this through our multi-stakeholder national expert board. So we have an expert board, and our strategy for stepping out of our lane somewhat has meant investing in relationship building and trust through security sector, the media, persons with disabilities, private sector, government, and academia through our National Expert Board. So in conclusion, as part of our localization and sustainability, the ownership and leadership of RSH Nigeria has been passed on to a Nigerian entity, what we call a local affiliate partner, LAP for short. And following a very rigorous selection process, we are pleased at the emergence of the Women Health and Rights Project, WRAP, and you will be hearing from them later. Now, with the motivation and capacity to continue to deliver safeguarding services in Nigeria over a longer time frame. I started, dear friends, by saying we are building the safeguarding aircraft as it takes off, but our values of integrity, of transparency, and of trust, and the approaches that I've outlined today ensure that the pilot, the crew, and the passengers feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. That was I love the symbolism and the analogy that you shared. Thanks for your informative speech. I would now like to give the floor to Gabrielle. Gabrielle, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fabienne. Hello, everyone. Bonjour. I'm very happy to join you this morning. I'm here to represent Canada this morning and remind once again that we have zero tolerance towards and strongly condemn all forms of sexual misconduct. including sexual exploitation, abuse, and sexual harassment in the delivery of international assistance, and we're working to strengthen prevention and response efforts. It's an abuse of power and trust which violates human rights and undermines our efforts to address gender equalities and to empower women and girls to reach their full potential. I'm here also, as my esteemed colleague mentioned, because we want to build trust, and that's our priority. It's a big priority for Canada. And we want to build trust with all kinds of partners, every stakeholder that Canada has, in order to work together to reach the full potential of women and girls. But we also have zero tolerance for inaction, meaning that we always encourage transparency and we always encourage reporting. So to borrow from our American colleagues who have mentioned it in Paris 2 weeks ago, we see reporting as an opportunity for dialogue as opposed to the punitive measure, as we all do our best to tackle this issue. While it has an immense impact on all of us from a reputational and operational perspective, we must remember to keep humans at the center of our prevention and response. And that's the first value that I would mention. Canada remains committed to working together with other donors to institutionalize PSEAH and to leverage collective engagement to have a coherent and lasting impact grounded in respect for human rights, gender equality, and their responsibility to do no harm. So as part of the many international commitments that we implement, including the common approach to protection against sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment, we also collaborate with our own Canadian and international partners for measures that work well for everyone and that are adapted to different contexts. Canadian partners, specifically, via the DIGNA, the Canadian Centre of Expertise for the Prevention of Sexual Exploitation, Abuse, and Harassment, are committed to using intersectional feminist and anti-racist approaches to PSEAH. And I'll talk about this a little bit later. And our colleagues from DIGNA are also in this conference today and will be speaking a little bit later. So anti-racism is also a priority for the Government of Canada, as evident by the dedicated anti-racism strategy, which was renewed for 2024 and 2028, from 2024 to 2028. Global Affairs Canada, specifically, which is the department that I work for, also produced an anti-racism strategy and an implementation plan, which works in complement with the Feminist International Assistance Policies focused on local solutions. So one way that the PSEAH team is concretely implementing the anti-racism strategy is by using the new methods that are being introduced with the launch of grants and contribution transformation at the department to review our PSEAH approach to risk, to project management, to prevention, and financing focus on local solutions. So that's also a priority for Canada to focus on local solutions. So we count on civil society for a number of things, for most things actually, especially in PSEAH circles, we count on them for prevention, for response, for knowledge sharing, for culture change, for exchanges on values, and all subtopics that are related to the issue. Canada adheres to the DAC recommendation on civil society, which provides actions and guidance on how to meaningfully engage for optimal results. Every single day, the department relies on civil society to deliver international assistance that ultimately reduces poverty, especially for women and girls. On PSEAH specifically, we work with our Canadian partners through DIGNA, as I said, the Canadian Centre of Expertise on PSEAH. The project has had significant success and has supported great innovation in PSEAH and in general for our Canadian sector in international assistance and beyond. Canada is proud to have invested in an additional $3 million and another 2 years for the project, which has grown or is focusing more on international or intersectional feminist and anti-racism approaches to the issue. So on the international scene, Canada is still committed to working collaboratively with civil society at all levels for prevention and for response. Efforts are completely incomplete without their invaluable leadership. We also, sorry, I'm going to take a little break here. Okay. So we also rely on civil society to continuously improve our survivor-centered approach. We honor our commitment to using a survivor-centered approach by putting survivors first, using a human rights approach, upholding non-discrimination, respecting confidentiality and informed consent, and aiming to ensure accountability. Although it's not always easy, we work hard to do so. Canada also requires that partners take measures to prevent and respond to allegations with a victim or survivor-centered approach, adopting similar principles. And we work together to ameliorate these measures. So again, I will end by saying that it's in the spirit of dialogue and collaboration that we support Canadian partners and international partners in their PSEAH journey, and to be able to fulfill the requirements and expectations that we have. And it's in the same spirit that Canada is proud to be here today to listen, to take in, and then bring home all the information shared during the conference. Coupled with the recent meeting that we had of the reference group of the DAC recommendation on ending SEAH, Canada is energized, and I'm energized and motivated to continue working hard to eliminate SEAH in international assistance. So thank you for your time. Merci. Shukran, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for sharing the perspective specifically of Global Affairs Canada. We now have our last keynote speaker, with Graham. Graham, over to you.
Thank you, Fabienne. Good morning, all. I'm Graham Thursby from Bond, the umbrella body of UK NGOs working in international development, connecting a diverse network of CSOs. I lead Bond's safeguarding work to secure sector-wide improvements in the quality and consistency of safeguarding in our sector. Really grateful to meet you all ahead of your sessions today, focusing on the locally led agenda and sustainable partnerships, as well as leadership and culture, both of which have been hot topics for Bond since our work on safeguarding started in 2018, a matter of months before the Global Summit. It's great to see the time, effort and resource that Bond members and the sector as a whole are putting into the locally led approach to keeping people safe. We know that local communities are the safest when they're involved and have the autonomy to design, develop, implement and evaluate safeguarding processes. However, we know we're not there yet, and we need to keep finding new ways to meaningfully engage with our local partners and local communities in our safeguarding practice. Bond had the privilege to work with a board of locally led advisors made up of international development workers from the global majority. As part of this work, one of Bond's safeguarding groups had an opportunity to understand how safeguarding looks to those in local communities. They shared that safeguarding as a term can be seen as colonialised and suggested that terminology such as keeping people safe had a better translation. The group shared reflection that local partners often feel blamed or at fault for safeguarding incidents, and that more work needs to be done on ensuring partnerships share responsibility and support one another. We need to continue to remember the power imbalances that can occur between NGOs and partners and ensure that our approaches do not feed these imbalances. Bond continues to promote locally led partnerships, encouraging organisations to flip compliant conversations on their heads, asking what local organisations are already doing to keep people safe, and working backwards to achieve the compliance needed for a successful partnership, building a relationship of trust as a collective. For those that complete FCDO's due diligence assessment with partners, Bond has created case studies to show how it can be done. These case studies have been a powerful tool for local organisations to push back when they're being asked of too much. When things go awry and a case occurs, Bond encourages the use of local investigators. Investigators from the context where the incident occurs have the best local knowledge of laws, speak the local language, understand safety concerns, and mitigate survivors' feeling that cases are only being managed to minimise reputational risk. Bond has teamed up with the Resource and Support Hub, asking Bond members to recommend local investigators where there are geographical gaps in the supplier directory. NGOs and CSOs need to work together, sharing good practice and recommendations when they work in the same context. The sector needs to remember that our values align to support global justice, and organisations should be willing to support one another. Embedding a culture of good safeguarding practice in an organisation is no mean feat, but it's essential to ensuring that the golden thread of keeping people safe in our work is considered at every stage of the project cycle. Organisations tell Bond that having an embedded safeguarding culture not only has a positive impact on better safeguarding practice, but it's also supported their approach to planning and resourcing safeguarding in their programmes. Leaders in organisations with an embedded safeguarding culture understand their systems to preventing sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment, which filters down to survivors in local contexts. Culture, or it's just how we do things around here, can be achieved with consultation with all staff and top-down messaging. Bond has created 2 tools which can support organisations to achieve this. Our Understanding Effective Culture tool, which allows all members of staff within an organisation to reflect on how they'd like a good safeguarding culture to look in their organisation. The feedback from completing this organisational-wide activity can be used to inform leaders when they complete our tool for leaders in developing and modelling a positive safeguarding culture. Our leadership tool is in-depth but clear and provides leaders with an action plan of how they can continue to invest in embedding an active safeguarding culture within their organisations. A lack of lived and breathed safeguarding culture in NGOs mixed with the power imbalances that can occur in international development in the past have created opportunities for sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment. And while NGOs increasingly recognise the urgency of addressing these issues through investment in safeguarding internally and a locally led approach, there's still more to be done in this space. Local actors from the communities that we work in have felt sidelined in safeguarding decision making, and with support of sessions like today, we can continue our efforts to improve this. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Graham, and thank you other keynote speakers for setting the scene for today's conversations.